Hello and welcome to another episode of FGC Philosophy. Today we'll have two exciting topics that we'll be discussing, so buckle up and get ready for an entertaining and informative episode. Hey, it's Tavian the Philosopher Napier, and as the Assistant Director of Esports and Arena at Western Michigan University, I've been lucky enough to turn my passion for gaming into a career. I organize and produce tournaments, I've competed in fighting games, and I've even tried my hand at commentary. Whether I'm behind the scenes or in the thick of the action, gaming is my love and my life. And I'm excited to share my experiences and my insights with you on this podcast. Now, the first topic we're going to be talking about is the MHSEL tournament that was hosted at the Western Michigan University Arena, the Esports Arena. As someone who produced the tournament, I'll be sharing my personal experiences and insights with you, what makes that tournament so special. We'll discuss the structure of the tournament, the games that were played, the atmosphere at the arena, and much more. If you're a fan of esports or just curious about what happens at major tournaments, you won't want to miss this segment. Now on to our second topic. There have been players in the fighting game community, primarily competitive fighting game players are the one that I take issue with, that have been using a cracked beta to play the game. If you don't know what that is, I'll get into more detail in a little bit. But for now, I believe that these players should be banned. We'll explore what that means, the ethical issues surrounding the use of the cracked beta, the impact on the community, and whether or not it's fair to those who have paid for the game. We'll also look at the potential consequences for those who choose to use a cracked beta and the reasons why some players might feel justified in using it. This is a topic that's sure to generate some debate, so make sure you tune in and share your thoughts as well. I'm excited to talk about this topic. We have a great episode lined up for you today. Whether you're an esports fan or a fighting game enthusiast or just someone who enjoys thought-provoking discussions, there's something here for you. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into these topics. So before we get into those topics, one thing I've got to mention. People who have been listening for a while now are familiar. I talk about audiobooks a lot, and I listen to them every day. Whether it's meditation books for my son that have dinosaur meditations, which are great because he goes to sleep and it's incredibly helpful because he gets to meditate and also combine dinosaurs. If you didn't know, my son's obsessed with dinosaurs. Makes it great. I listen to a lot of self-development or fantasy books like the Sword of Truth series, the Harry Potter series. I'm currently listening to a series called The Land, which is almost like an isekai, but an American isekai in a book. It's really, really interesting is what I'm saying. Now, if you're interested in audiobooks, you're like me, you travel a lot, or you're just doing a lot of things, you can't really read as often, or you don't want to read as often, not judging, audiobooks are a great option. And Audible has a huge catalog. I've been using them for a long time, like literally 15 years, just almost every day, at least once a week, bare minimum. And you can get a free month. You can try this out. If you don't like it, no problem. You didn't spend any money and you won't have to. If you do like it, if you end up keeping the service for 3 months by using my link, then I get a small commission. Every little bit helps, and I greatly appreciate it. And if you're going to use Audible anyway, then now's your chance to try it for free before you actually buy for it, if that makes sense. So make sure you check it out, taviannapier.com/audible. It'll take you right there. You should get a free month plus a free book, and you can try it out for yourself. All right, now let's get to the topics. All right, so the first topic is the MHSEL High School Championship Finals. We were reached out to a while ago by an organization. They are the Michigan Association of Assistant Principals of Secondary Schools, something along those lines. I can't think of it right off the top of the head. I am kind of tired and it's been a long day, but I'm here to talk. But yeah, they reached out to Western Michigan University. I am the person that runs the esports program, so I was a huge part of the conversation and a part of the planning. And we have been planning this for 2 semesters, right? And it was the biggest event of the year. Now, I want to look at this from a couple of different perspectives because there's my perspective and there's kind of the social perspective. And I think it's important to mention both of them because my perspective, I think, is a little bit warped, but for the betterment of my mindset, and I'll explain that in a second. The other one is the social overall aspect of it because it was a very big deal. And I want to give a little bit of scale to that. Now, what this is, before we get into all that stuff, is it's a tournament. It was a finals, right? So we have all the esports teams in high school, all the high school esports teams in Michigan that were in this league hosted by this organization at MHSEL, coming to a local spot, which would be our arena, to compete. Now, there were 3 different games. The first game was League of Legends, the second one was Rocket League, and the third one was Smash. So basically, it was the top 2 teams from each team competing on the main stage. That was the attraction, the main attraction of the event. And our responsibility was, it was our computers, it was our building, it was our production team, and our tech support. So, making sure all the PCs are working properly, or if anybody has any issues, audio or controller issues, that's our responsibility. Putting on the show both on the live stream and also on the big screen for people in the actual arena to attend and watch, that's our responsibility. And I was essentially an advisor as well. Like, that's not on the actual description of things that I would be doing, but technically it's something that I have to do because a lot of people who are hosting tournaments, it's their first time, or it's their first time doing it with production. That's kind of the allure of the arena, is that it's professional production with professional equipment. It's not no rinky-dink setup, not to judge anybody else or anything. It's like a really great setup, though. They put $500,000 into this facility, and I think in a lot of ways it shows when it comes to our production. And all that said, to convey the idea that these people were coming in, hoping to put on a show. And we definitely delivered, right? I feel like I sound cocky saying these things, but I feel like I need to say it in a matter-of-fact way because I'm fine acknowledging my accomplishments while not getting caught up in my feelings, right? Not letting it go to my head to some degree. And I know what quality is. I can see that objectively. I can critique it, right? I can give criticism on it. And there's definitely criticism I have about my own production. Don't get it twisted. There's a lot of improvements I want to make, but there's not many organizations out there, even just traditional streams as well, that are on our quality, both in-house and online. Mostly in-house, honestly. But we do a pretty decent online stream as well. We have ideas on how to make it better, but we work within our means. So I say all that to mention, to bring up the fact that, they came to us for this event and we delivered. And it was great. The first thing that we did, I think the first topic to talk about, before I get too ahead of myself, is the preparation. Now, preparation is something that I'm weak in, I would say. I'm a doer. I procrastinate as well, so I will figure out how to do things in a burst of information, and I'll just go do it. But I don't usually, over the course of months, it's a little bit harder for me to see the big picture and plan that accordingly. But, we met, we talked, and while this was also happening, I was hosting other tournaments and, learning the skills on my own path, right? Because we did organize our own in-house tournaments this year. We had a couple of different kinds of events like banquets and such. We did a lot of streaming this year. So we have a lot of experience with preparing in our own way. But, it was fascinating to see this other organization and their method because they weren't focused on production. They didn't really have to include all of that. It was purely getting the schools to enter into this league. The preparation, I got to see and talk about the production aspect and the flow of the event, right? Because I say production, and I do mean the lights, the sounds, the cameras, the gameplay, the commentary. That is all part of what we do. But because we're an in-house location, we also have to explain to people where they need to be and what they need to be doing. So I don't know what category that actually falls into, like a stagehand or something like that. And a director in a sense, because they know what they want to do with the bracket, and they understand like their schedule from start to finish of like how what they're going to say, how they're going to say it, all that kind of stuff, which I thought was very interesting because we don't have anything too documented in that sense. So getting to see his documentation of how the flow of the event worked, it was a great combination because we already had the process of how to do production. We just know how to do it. A lot of it is just from experience, and there is documentation, but my crew, myself, we know what to do because we've talked about it and we've done it in the past and we set up for it, just not in the same way they do it. And when the day of the tournament, like always, I usually have I don't know if anxiety is the right word, right? I'm anxious, right? There's a lot of things in my mind, things I want to make sure I remember. Like that's when my brain starts to really start firing rather than over the course of the years, because it's just easier for me to see it in the next coming days. But, having conversations with them and asking them questions along that path, whether via email or it was through like a Skype call, Teams call, or what's the other one? I can't think of the other one. A really popular one. There's WebEx. We use WebEx as well, and there's another one. I'm really sad I can't remember what it is. I'll remember it later on. But I digress. I digress. Overall, it was great to work with them. I said they're the most organized experience, most organized people or group that we've worked with, and that's nothing against any of the other groups, but it just was refreshing to see the level of preparation they had. And a lot of these people are learning, so it's not like a knock on anybody, because I think everyone's doing a great job in their own way. But these guys, I guess they've been doing it for a while, or maybe because they've been principals, they know how to organize things in a different kind of way. It's just nice and refreshing, and I get to learn a lot about their process, because I feel like I learned a lot just watching and looking at their documentation and reading how they structure an event. So that's something that we can build upon at Western Michigan University, and the staff and the team, we can absorb that like many of the other rentals that we've had, other clients that we've worked with. But in terms of the sheer scale, my brain was just focused on doing it. So I wasn't really thinking about the perception. It was more just, let's make sure this is as good as it can be. That is my job. So that's where my brain was at. But, my staff, the people that, like my coaches and people helping with production or volunteering, they're like, this is a huge deal. This is the state championships for the Esports League, and there's like a bunch of teams in the school, and they're coming from all over. Like, Detroit's 4 hours away from us or something like that. There's a lot of schools traveling from a long way to come here. And I'm like, that's cool. Nice. Not really perceiving like what people would see about that, unless it deals with marketing specifically and numbers. That I care about data and stats and doing well in the process, not whether or not people think that we're a big deal. To a degree. There's a middle ground there, but I'm oversimplifying. I digress. But yeah, it was a big deal. Channel 3 News, if you're in the Michigan area, you might know them. They came by and did an article on the event. I should post that. I should put the clip or the link in the show notes for you, so you can check that out yourself. I think that'd be cool for people who aren't in the area, or maybe have never seen the arena. There's some cool pictures in there, I believe, little excerpts and information. But yeah, not only was it fun to produce and cool to learn and see and experience, it was also entertaining. We were the ones producing the show, but we got to watch some really high-level high school esports. Like, it is hard to explain, because you watch high school football or high school sports, and a lot of times, that can be as entertaining. And I think sometimes there's physical limitations, but usually by the time high school comes around, it's, they're a little bit stronger. They're a little bit, it's just mainly the experience, I would say. But either way, it's kind of the same situation in high school esports, where, these kids are young. They can only be so good normally, but that's kind of not as much of an issue, because video games are so accessible at a young age that these kids can just exponentially grow. So some of these kids are already better than college, teams. Our teams are pretty good, so not our teams in particular, but some of these kids, yes, individuals within these teams were on our level, or even higher than some of like our League of Legends players and stuff like that. So it was entertaining to see that. Again, we did League of Legends, which is the most chaotic to watch, in my opinion. But if you're a fan of League of Legends and you know what's going on, it's incredibly exciting. And I think it always will be. But then you also have Rocket League, which is much simpler to understand, right? You don't have to know all the crazy mechanics of the game to know what's going on and appreciate it to a degree. Car, put ball in goal, points go up. It's really, really simple. But it's really fun to watch. And there were some great Rocket League players as well, like some really great matches that went back and forth, and it was really entertaining to see that. And then the same thing with Smash Bros. Oh my god, the Smash Bros. Oh my god. All right, so this was a crew battle, so it was like a 1 versus 1 3 times in a row. So this took me a while to understand, actually. But basically, it's 3 best out of 5s. Each player does 1 best out of 5 with their equally seeded opponent from the other school. And they duke it out that way. So, if the first player wins the best of 5, you get 1 point overall for the team match. If the second player wins on the same team wins their best of 5, then it's a best 2 out of 3 total. You totally win. You're done. You're done with the tournament. This ended up being 1-1, which means that game 3 was going to happen either way for fairness. It is a high school, so we want to make sure everyone does play. But it ended up being 1 versus 1, or 1-1, which meant that the last match was the tiebreaker. And they saved their best ranked players for the last match. So that was kind of I don't know if they were just doing it for the fun to or if they were actually trying to make an anchor player in case it was 1 versus 1. That's just kind of nuts. And the craziest part to me is that the 2 players at the end that played, the highest seeded players that played against each other, were both Snake mains. They were both Solid Snake mains. Now, if you don't play Smash and you don't know who Solid Snake is, I can't help you. But no, seriously though, Solid Snake is a video game character from a game that has nothing to do with fighting games, very far removed, but he got onto the roster of Super Smash Bros. This guy's like a military tactical espionage expert, right? He has explosives and rocket launcher, which is explosives. He has CQC, which is he does have fighting moves because he is a mercenary that does fight people, but it's not in fighting game mechanics or anything like that, much like many of the other characters. But yeah, he's just so far removed. He has normal human proportions. He's dressed in this espionage gear. But he's my favorite character. I can't play him worth a crap because he's so weird, but I enjoy it. And just the fact that, Snake isn't a super duper popular character. There's some really good Snake players out there. But to see 2 of them fighting against each other, I'm the weirdo. I'm the masochist that likes mirror matches. I love playing mirror matches. It's just it's 100% fair. You can't make any excuses about the character. What the character can do. It's just playing chess almost. You have the same exact pieces, nothing different other than just what you do with those pieces, and win. So yeah, it was exciting. It was fun. And then what was really cool too is my boss stopped by. He doesn't work in esports. He has many other responsibilities, so he doesn't get to come through all the time. And he stopped by and he got to see the audience. There was 160 people total at the arena. So and we seat about 200, and so it was a pretty good turnout. And Smash Bros was just incredibly exciting. You get to hear the crowd. You get to see the action, to hear the commentators reacting to it. It's just so much fun. And so overall, a great experience. It's the last event of the year, and we ended with a bang. We got on the news, a lot of social media presence, I suppose, activity, engagement. That's the one, engagement. There we go. So that's really good for business. And it was really fun, and it was an honor to work with this company, which already wants to do something with us again next year. So I am incredibly excited for that. Now, on to the other topic. Let me explain. Street Fighter 6 is a game that is coming out in a couple of months. It has been the talk of the town since it was announced last year or something like that, for many different reasons. And this game is looking to be very good. That isn't completely relevant to this story, but it is important to note. It is an incredibly exciting game. And like many other games that are coming out and are anticipated in our multiplayer, it had a beta. Now, this beta lasts for a certain period of time. You lose access to it because it is a server-based game, right? You download it, and then when they're done, you just can't play the game anymore because they basically shut it down. And that's what happened to the Street Fighter 6 beta. Now, some people figured out a way to get around that off switch that Capcom set. And this is called cracking. This is a cracked beta. So when I'm talking about crack, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the video game, okay? And that's what happened. This cracked beta, people started playing it. Now, on the surface, that's pretty harmless. But you have to keep in mind that I am in the competitive gaming circle. And that's an issue, right? And this has been a conversation. I want to hopefully talk about this a little bit more, maybe have a guest back on the show, because I talked about it a little bit with Kenso in a previous episode. But I've had a lot of time to think about it, and there's been more development, right? We've learned more about it, and I understand a little bit more, and I've had more time to just process my opinions. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, I do think that these players should be banned from certain tournaments. Why I think that is the more important thing. Because I've seen people debating online back and forth about this. Like, it's not a big deal. You know, the advantage that they have, which is the important part, they have a tactical advantage because they're sitting there training, playing the game. These competitive players who are going to be entering tournaments, right, have access to something that every other player is respecting because Capcom made it as such. There's terms of services to this, right? There's technically legal agreements or documentation saying, you know, when you play this beta, you're only playing it from this period to this period. So you're technically breaking contract. I don't know the technical term. I don't know the legal terms. I'm saying it wrong, but you're essentially going against what the contract said that you basically signed by either hitting OK or powering up the game, whatever it may be. You agreed to it. So not only is there the legal issues with Capcom being able to punish you somehow, I don't know exactly what that is right now, but you also have this ethical issue of getting an advantage. And then there's a moral question. And that's the part that I want to focus on. The reason I want to talk about the moral issue is because there is an argument to be had for the fact that the players who play the cracked beta, they'll have an advantage, but it'll be temporary. Right? That's sort of the back and forth right now, is that there's an advantage that you'll have, and then a lot of players come back with, yeah, but like, for how long? And there's two things. One, they're going to be winning tournaments until that gap evens out. That's still tournaments that are being beaten in a kind of an unfair manner, right? So at the beginning of the tournament, it's sort of sullied because you have these players who didn't respect the boundaries that Capcom set and everyone else followed. But the more important part is, how can I trust you? Right? You're willing to, a lot of times publicly, you know, streaming this stuff, you're willing to cheat, essentially, to get an advantage or because you're selfish. And I will say personally, like, this doesn't really, I think there's a separate argument for people who aren't competitive, but that's not what I want to focus on in this episode. I want to focus on specifically players who know that they're going to be competing in tournaments, players who are known to already have been playing competitively at a high level, right? These players who can learn exponentially and will get an advantage and may maintain an advantage for a long time, depending on how things go. But also, who's to say you won't do more? Who's to say that you won't do it again, right? How can I trust when you make a claim that a player did something? That trust is kind of gone because you're willing at this point to break the rules, and you're willing to admit it. Perhaps there's things that you are already doing or will do, and you probably wouldn't say anything, right? There's an issue. There's almost like a, I don't know if I would say boy who cried wolf per se, but something along those lines where you have made an act that you know is benefiting you and can screw over other people who respected, whether you respect Capcom in particular. I don't mean that. I just mean there are rules set about when you can play a game. And there's personally, right? I grew up in an area where if someone shows you something that, you don't trust them, like if they steal from you, right? They steal your bike. Don't trust them around your stuff anymore, right? And I don't say that as a theoretical thing. I mean, my brother had a friend who stole my bike and came back to my house looking for my brother on my bike, right? And then my parents took it from him because my bike was very unique. There's no way anybody else had a red and white BMX with a purple handbrake. Like, it wasn't happening. So, a friend down the street stole my bike. Why would I ever trust that guy again? Right? So arrogant that he did it right in my face. That's basically what these people are doing that are like open about it, streaming it, making YouTube content on it. In my opinion, I think Capcom has every right to be like, yo, you're not joining our Capcom Pro Tour. Now, I think there's a caveat, because what happens in the FGC is that there's this cascade effect where one organization that's well known bans a player, then every other organization starts to do the same thing. And I'm not necessarily saying that. However, many majors are associated with Capcom through the Capcom Pro Tour. I believe there are tournaments where you can get points towards that in things like Combo Breaker or maybe even Evo. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm pretty sure this is how that works, because Tekken and MK had similar things. So that gets a little bit muddy, because I'm not necessarily saying that they need to, but because they are technically affiliated with Capcom, there's a good chance they might be legally obligated to, because they are associated with Capcom. And then there's other people who just like to follow suit because, either they think they strongly follow morally whatever is being talked about, but some people might just be a little bit trigger happy. And so I don't think individual tournaments should ban them, but I definitely think the $2 million that Capcom is putting up, they don't deserve any part of that. And if you disagree, tell me why you disagree. Tell me why you think that a person, if I was Capcom and I said, you can't practice this unless everybody can practice this, right? And you're willing to go against that. Why would I give you my $2 million plus or any part of that, right? There's $1 million for first place, and then it's divvied up amongst the top whatever. I'm just saying, maybe think about that from that perspective. If you had $2 million that you were giving out for a tournament and people were cheating, would you let them compete and get that money? I wouldn't. Just saying. So let me know if you disagree. I would love to hear it. I would love to debate about it. I want to get into this because some people might think it's not a serious topic, but I think it is going to become a more serious topic, an important topic, depending on how the future of gaming is. Otherwise, they're going to screw us over and not let us get as many good betas because these people keep doing that kind of stuff. So I want betas. I want to play some cool betas. I want to get some closed betas, whatever it may be in the future. And these people, in my opinion, risk ruining that as well. So let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much. And as always, I will see you all in the next one.